Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's TechBan, and welcome back to this dramatic reading of Batmare Beyond by Tatsuro. Chapter 4. Take Your Dollar to Work Day. Bruce stood by the door, glancing at his watch, seeing time ticking away. Grumbling to himself, he looked up. "Rarity," he called out. "We need to get going." "Just a minute, Father," she called out happily from upstairs. She had become much more vocal ever since her last front tooth came in and she lost her lisp. She had, in fact, refused to go out where she would have to talk with anyone else until that happened, which is why this had been delayed so long as it was. Bruce grumbled under his breath, leaning back against the wall again. After waiting a while longer, he glanced at his watch again before crying out, "Rarity, we're going to be late." "Coming, Father," she called back, clipping down the stairs. She was wearing a rather pretty blue sundress and silver horseshoes, along with a ruby pendant Bruce recognized as having belonged to his mother. Bruce blinked. "Where did you get that outfit?" "I made it," Rarity explained. "I ordered the materials online. I was hoping to surprise you. Does it look good, Father?" Bruce smiled. "It looks very good. And the pendant?" "My magic showed me an old jewelry box in the attic," she explained. "It had so much lovely jewelry in it, and so well made, too. Well, I just couldn't leave it moldering up there, so I brought it down to my room to wear with some of the outfits I've made for myself. Is that all right?" Bruce was silent for a time. "That was my mother's jewelry box," he said at last. "Oh, dear," Rarity gasped, putting her hoof gently to the pant. "Do you think she'll mind?" Bruce winced internally. For all Rarity had taken to calling him father and behaving as though they were already family, which they were only a few days of paperwork processing away from being, she still didn't know the family history. "I don't think she'll mind," he said at last. He didn't want to upset Rarity just now. She had already begun showing a flair for dramatic behavior when appropriate, and they didn't really have time for a storm of weeping. Rarity smiled happily. "Would you like to meet Grandma?" she asked hopefully. "Someday," Bruce said at last, opening the door. "Come on, it's time to head to the office." Into the office. Rarity let out a happy squeal, prancing over to the car. "Can I drive?" she asked eagerly. "No," Bruce replied immediately and firmly. At the office, Bruce was surprised at how well things went. He had 3 goals in bringing Rarity to the office, and so far all 3 showed good progress. The first had been to test and see if Rarity's skills at day trading, which she described as finding rare gems in the market, could be applied to situations in the workplace. So far, she had already identified 3 employees with underutilized talents that could benefit the company through a lateral move just by talking to them. And that was before they had even made it to Bruce's office to go over paperwork. The second was to see how she handled herself with other people. While her reallocation of personnel proved that she knew how to manage people, it didn't demonstrate social skills. However, she quickly proved adept there, as she proved able to recall many details of anyone she met in the company, even every time she saw them and engaged in small talk quite easily. The third goal had to do with how she addressed him. Given how her talent had shown, he had already set things in motion to clear the adoption paperwork to make her legally his daughter. Author Note 1. He wanted to test the waters of the company to see how his employees felt regarding his new daughter, especially regarding the possibility of her being his heir and eventually becoming head of the company. So far, she seemed to be getting a favorable reaction from the personnel. Those that didn't coo over how adorable she was were impressed with how she handled herself, and her mere presence seemed to reassure many of the lower-level workers, especially after all the worry which had become palpable since the beginning of the Power's hostile takeover attempt, which, prior to Rarity's arrival, had slowly been gaining momentum. So far, his plans seemed to be bearing fruit. Rarity, for her part, seemed to absolutely love working with the company and managing things. She'd already found several accounting errors and missed details that allowed for a drastic improvement in efficiency. Bruce wasn't sure if she was simply that good at spotting errors, or if her magic was letting her sense where things didn't quite add up. At the moment, Bruce was waiting on a rather unpleasant meeting coming up. As per usual, Powers would be coming in to once again attempt to convince him to sell the company, or at least a large enough portion of it for Powers to execute a merger. Hoping to keep Rarity from being a focus of attention or discussion, he had given her another mobile unit to play with at a desk off to the side. Last he checked, she was day trading again. At that moment, Powers came in. "Bruce!" he said expansively. "So good to see you again." "Powers," Bruce replied curtly. "Oh, come now, Bruce," Powers continued, still trying to be friendly. "I was hoping, with what with our upcoming business agreement, we can be friends. We will be working together after." "That arrangement won't be going through, Powers," Bruce interrupted. "I've made other arrangements. I have other plans for my family's company." Powers' smile flickered briefly. "Come now, Mr. Wayne," he continued. "Don't you think you're being just a bit stubborn? You've built up the company so well. You'll have to retire one of these days. Wouldn't you rather the company held together? Isn't it time to pass the torch to a younger man?" "Or perhaps a younger mare," Rarity suddenly spoke up, levitating her unit aside, still manipulating the holo display as she turned her attention to Powers. Her forearms crossed over her barrel as she stared at him over half-moon sunglasses. Powers blinked, having been caught off guard. "And you are?" he asked sweetly, condescendingly. "Rarity Wayne," Rarity said firmly. "Father's been introducing me to the workings of the family company." Her smirk could have been friendly, but Bruce bet it was in response to the back step Powers had taken at her emphasis. "And I don't see why father would want to go into business with your company, Miss Powers, all things considered." "Oh?" Powers asked. "And why's that?" Bruce watched carefully. He could see that Powers was starting to get a bit uneasy. Something Rarity was saying was getting to him, putting him off his game. And he was interested in seeing what her plan was. "Well, it just seems that several of your recent business decisions have seemed rather questionable," Rarity explained. She brought the comp unit back in front of her. "Your recent explorations in the arms markets appears to have overextended your company's capital. And despite your report to your investors, unless you are able to accomplish this merger with Wayne Enterprise, or acquire a rather large dose of liquid capital, you may yet have to file for bankruptcy, especially as those weapons you decided to invest in producing proved less than effective, especially with the new generation of body armor Wayne Enterprise has provided for law enforcement and the military." She smiled sweetly. "You really should have a clean house before you try to buy your way into someone else's." Bruce's eye narrowed his eyes as he watched the interchange. Powers was actually sweating. He didn't know where Rarity got this information or what she was planning to do with it, but she was playing Powers like a fiddle. Moments later, Powers' mobile unit went off with an alert. "A moment," he said, taking it out of his pocket and checking the display. After a moment, his grin turned vicious, and he confirmed a transaction of some sort. After a time, the unit confirmed that the transaction was complete. "I don't think that's something you, or I, need to worry about anymore, Miss Wayne." "Oh, do you mean these $7 billion you just acquired for your personal stock shares in your company?" Rarity asked sweetly. "Voting shares at that. A full 25% of the voting shares, if I'm not mistaken." "Rather risky to let go of that much control of your own company, don't you think?" Bruce felt his eyes widen in shock as Powers' face paled. "How could you possibly..." Powers began. Oh, and to someone with the username Lady Mysterious, Rarity continued. Certainly a risky venture to give so much over to someone about whom you only know that they have the funds and a vested interest in the outcomes of your dealings. As Powers' face contorted in rage, Rarity sat back in her chair. I think you best consult with your investors before you make any more big decisions about your company. You may find things have just changed drastically. Powers growled. A minor setback, he grumbled. Still not enough to control the direction of the board of investors. And when they learn you're... Oh, but Lady Mysterious isn't my only anonymous account I day trade with, Rarity interrupted. It's perfectly legal to use multiple anonymous accounts, after all. Perhaps you best check your board members list again. A few names to keep an eye out for. Pretty Friendly Princess, Rare Gem, Diamond Girl, and Pink Puppy? Blinking in confusion, Powers looked at the list of his board of investors and discovered that many of those with voting shares had recently sold theirs off for triple their current market value. 4 particular accounts had acquired those portions of the voting shares in Power Technology. Pretty Pony Princess owned 5% of the voting shares. Rare Gem owned 10%. Diamond Girl owned another 5%. And Pink Puppy owned 6%. Powers slumped in on himself like a puppet whose strings had been cut. He glowered at Rarity. She had, right under his nose, and in the same room as him, played him like a lute and become the majority shareholder in his company. Right under his nose. With one last growl, he turned and stormed out. Have a nice day now, darling, Rarity called after him. As soon as the door had closed, she fell back in her chair and giggled. Oh, fun! That was so much fun! Are any of your other business rivals such mean-spirited idiots? Bruce chuckled. No, Rarity. He was the only one. Pity, Rarity sighed. Still, that was quite fun. Rather amusing to watch as well, Bruce admitted. Just one thing, though. Pink Puppy? Rarity tittered. Well, Ace was so adorable when I preyed him up that I just had to take a picture with your camera. I was at a loss coming up with new account names, and that picture made the perfect avatar, so... Bruce replied, nodding his understanding. He sat back, watching Rarity as she went back to shifting happily between day trade and company paperwork. His suspicions were confirmed. He had felt her intellectual development was outstripping her physical development by a good margin. Short of her being a member of a race of miniature ponies, there was no biological reason for that, which implied a magical reason. Her easy handling of powers confirmed suspicion that it was not only natural talent, but suppressed experience that allowed her to handle such things so easily. That meant she had undergone some form of age regression. The only question that left was how, why, and how to prepare her for what to come. Author Note 1. The Alien Foundling Act of 2030, as passed by the UN at the urging of the Justice League, stated quite plainly that an infant that arrives from the stars, the depths of the sea, another plane of existence, or another dimension, could be claimed as warden child of those who found them if the child proved to be content in the agreement 1 year after arrival. It also stated that entities from the foundling's point of origin who share enough genetic commonality with the foundling to be identified as parents would have to prove justification for the child being lost and why to reclaim them outside that 1 year time period. The act is stated to be retroactive as Superman, so Superman, as Clark Kent, didn't have to worry about legal issues involving his legal lineage. That was both rather easy and really difficult because it was just kind of a, how high did I have Rarity again? It's hard for me to maintain a high pitch that Rarity does with limitations, so I'm just trying to maintain the inflection while raising my voice a bit. Otherwise it gets squeaky, and that's one of the reasons this took so long to come out. I listened to it one time and I went, oh my god, I sound horrible. How can you people stand me? That's one more down. We're starting to get into interesting stuff, but that's next chapter. In the meantime, folks, my name's TechBan. I wish you all good luck, good hunting, and safe travels. I'll see you in the next one, my benditos.